With Crimson Desert's launch next month, the big conversation that a lot of people have been having is, will there be a microtransaction store in Crimson Desert? And this is partly because of Pearl Abyss's previous game, Black Desert Online. Well, in this video today, I want to discuss Crimson Desert, its possible microtransaction store, and give you some kind of historical context on a Black Desert Online, or BDO, and their microtransaction store. In my typical fashion of upfronting the knowledge of my videos, let me just kind of give you a too long didn't watch up front. There is going to be no microtransaction store in Crimson Desert. They have already stated, Pearl Abyss has said, hey, there is not going to be one. This is a premium experience. You're going to purchase the game and you're going to own the game. Now, that then does bring up a future conversation of what does DLC look like? How does this, really kind of play out to a long-term profile for the game, and we'll discuss those things in this video. But that's the too long didn't watch this entire video. So that's all you wanted to know. Please feel free to go ahead and shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. You can jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters with the timeline in the description. We'll be pretty much be talking about, like I said, is the historical context of BDO's MTX store. We'll talk about what Crimson Desert said, what Pearl Abyss and Willpower said about their microtransaction store, and I'll just kind of close the video out with my overall thoughts about everything. But if you are heading out and you found the information in this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Each one of those things helps me out in a huge way. Let's get started here on our discussion about the possible microtransaction store in Crimson Desert. So to start our conversation off, we're going to talk about history. And the opening conversation now is going to be about Black Desert Online. So Pearl Abyss, who is making Crimson Desert, first made BDO, or Black Desert Online. And it was originally released out in Korea. I think it was in Korea and Russia first before it actually made its way to the US in 2016, 2017. And the big conversation about that is how their MTX store kind of evolved and what it really started off as and how it works now. Because the conversation is it pay to win? Does the developer really want to push that into people's mouth, whatever it is? And essentially it launched with a premium shop called the Pearl Shop, and it sold cosmetics, pets, convenience items, and account services. The typical kind of MTX that we get every time we look at any sort of MMO of any kind of shape or size. And over time, players basically would take a look at this system and say, does this really generate a pay to win scenario? And I'm going to give complete transparency here. I've never played BDO. What I did was looked up a whole bunch of information on what a lot of BDO players have said about it. Some people really vehemently defended it, saying that it's really not that much pay to win. And some said, no, call it out for what it is. It's pay to win. So I'm going to give you what I've seen from both sides of that fence. And if you are a BDO player, please let me know in the comment section below what your stance is. But essentially, the pets situation, the pets pretty much will go ahead and loot items for you. But I've heard that sometimes those pets don't actually sufficiently loot all the items for you, so you still have to bend down and pick items up. So there's that kind of crosshair, or not crosshair, that's splitting of hairs right there. Some of the convenience items allow you to allow you to hit the auction house remotely without having to go back to your house. Okay, so that can be one where you can just simply log out and jump to another character. So there's those two right there. Another one allows you to repair items remotely and at a cheaper rate. Now, I've heard that one actually is one of the biggest compounding ones because over time, you really rack up pretty big repair bills. So it saves you a ton of gold or silver at the latter portions of the game. And I guess, too, a lot of these cosmetic items that do give you benefits actually also give you 10% combat experience. I'm sorry, when I say give you benefits, they give you visual benefits. You look different because it's a cosmetic item, and clearly I don't know how to use my goddamn words, but still, you get 10% more combat experience. But I guess that's not really a whole lot because you can get 550 combat experience by just simply playing through quests. You get stuff that gives you inventory stuff, slots, but you get that through playing quests. So it's hard for me as non-BDO player to determine how predatory this system is. But really what it comes down to here is that the system, the overall MTX store, you can actually use in-game gold to purchase items from. So that's what people, you can't use your in-game currency to purchase directly from the shop. You can sell those items on the auction house. So you can use the in-game currency to buy them from the auction house. That's one of the biggest pain points of the MTX. Someone wants to simply bankroll their game by buying, let's just say 4 or 5 MTX items and selling them for an exorbitant amount on the auction house. Then they just have superficial amounts of gold, which seems to be the big thing for the end game. So whether or not it's hyper predatory, it definitely comes down to a situation where you can jump to the front of the line in a lot of certain instances. And that's the big pain point with BDO and its monetization. They being the BDO players, don't want this same monetization to enter into Crimson Desert or have anything of the sort that allows players to circumvent certain mechanics within the game, to circumvent certain progression within the game, and most certainly not get a jump start into any way, shape, or form into their progression in Crimson Desert. Now, the big difference here too is we're talking about a live service MMO versus a single player experience. So the question then is, has Pearl Abyss resolved this? Have they actually said anything contrary to having MTXs or what MTX is going to be like in Crimson Desert? And wouldn't you know it, he definitely has. Will Powers is, I believe, the marketing director for Crimson Desert at Pearl Abyss, and he has stated outright that this game is a premium experience. That is the transaction, full stop. That this is simply, you're going to purchase the game and that's it. Now, this is a pretty clear statement. It says to us that there's going to be no MTX at launch, especially at launch. There are pre-order benefits, and they just give you a cosmetic set of armor or whatever, right? I think there's a bunch of different pre-order packages, and I think there's one that's a PS5 exclusive because, exclusivity is always a thing. But, multiple outlets have also confirmed this. Hey, there's no MTX that we see on the back end, and that's great, right? This is being framed as a single player experience, where an MTX store doesn't really make a whole ton of sense. A more recent example of this would be like Dragon's Dogma 2. Dragon's Dogma 2 had an MTX store. It had a huge backlash. I personally played and loved Dragon's Dogma 2, and I saw that MTX store didn't really give you anything. You're pretty much purchasing things that the game gives you in abundance within the first 10, 15 minutes of playing. So you kind of look at stuff like that and you're like, okay, I hope there's nothing like that in this game. And again, it doesn't seem to be any indication of that coming. Now, the further conversation though is, okay, if we're removing an MTX from this, is there going to be any DLC? Do you, as the viewer, as the player, look at DLC in the same vein as an MTX? Personally, I do not. I look at it as its own separate situation that has development dollars allocated towards it. And if I want to jump into that level of content, it is, it's got a price tag attached to it. Now, there's also a further conversation of any kind of future content rollouts for this. It doesn't seem like that's the plan. It seems like Crimson Desert, at first blush, is such a massive game that they're not even thinking about, hey, we're going to roll out this big multi-year or multi-month content plan with free content coming and big updates. Like if you look at, say, like a Borderlands 4, you look at the development of Space Marine 2, they have all of these additional content drops. Doesn't look like that's the case here. Now, I'm not saying that that is not the case and they're not going to do it, but they haven't spoken about any kind of future plans. And that makes sense. We're not necessarily even at launch month. So a lot of this is just a lot of early hype, right? So I imagine once we get closer to launch, we will find out more about any possible future launch situations, I guess you could say, any content plans for the future, what those will look like, and if we will start to see any free content attached to that. So in conclusion, the question isn't, what happens on day one? It's what's going to happen after, right? What are we going to see down the road for Crimson Desert? Are we going to see expansions upon the game's play styles? Are we going to see expansions upon the game's continents and map? We don't really know quite anything yet, right? We have a clear idea that this is a premium model and it's a premium game, and it comes with all of the bells and whistles of the term premium. But this day and age in the gaming industry, the word premium kind of has a dirty connotation to it, right? We think of AAA studios and how it's just kind of going to drag you through the mud for a $70 game. How are we going to have that kind of long-term exposure to Crimson Desert? That's I guess the biggest question mark that even in researching this video, that came up for me. I was like, okay, clearly there's no MTX. but this is a video game company, and video game companies need to make reoccurring amounts of revenue. They need to continue to bring people in. What's going to be the future draw for Crimson Desert? Do they have those DLCs planned and what have you? Now, we know that we're getting additional, it's not necessarily that you have additional characters. And I made an improper statement in my last video about the combat, but you have the main protagonist and then additional characters you can play in Crimson Desert. So it does make me wonder if we will eventually get more characters that we can play, if there's going to be an expansion upon the actual play map or anything like that. But again, first off, we have to actually see what all those things look like. So in the coming weeks and months, I will continue to cover Crimson Desert. We'll continue to talk about the things that have been released. I'm extremely hyped up for the game. Hopefully I'll be able to get any kind of early access, any kind of review key to give you guys some preview information about what the game's got going for it. Right now, everything that I'm talking about with you guys is stuff that's just readily available on the internet. So you can always just, I guess, look that up, I suppose, if you want to kind of corroborate what I'm saying. But go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. How do you feel about this? Do you feel that this is kind of the same thing that we see with a lot of companies where, yeah, they're promising one thing, they're going to deliver something else? Or are you stoked? Are you a Pearl Abyss BDO fan and you're like, great, awesome. There's no MTX. We can just jump into this both feet. Let me know in the comment section below what you're feeling about this. If you are going to be pre-ordering the game, and please, as always, guys, I always tell you, do not pre-order a game unless you are 100% sure you're going to get it. This is not the dark ages of the of the gaming industry where if you don't pre-order, we don't get copies of things. Don't do that. So if you are going to pre-order, though, you can find a link to my Fanatical store in the description. I get like a 7% commission, and you get, I think, a 15% discount on it. Those discounts always kind of fluctuate day to day, it seems like. But you can, if you want to support the channel, you can go ahead and use that link. And again, let me know in the comment section below about how your stance or what your stance is on Crimson Desert as we get closer and closer to that launch. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.